wir sehen schon. Guten Abend, Ladies and Gentlemen, herzlich willkommen. Ich würde Sie gerne einladen. I would like to invite you to go around this sculpture, Burnt Instruments. You can come closer, you can come to this side. Just find yourself around this area, please. There are some chairs for people who want to sit. Standing there in the corner, da sind noch einige Sitze, die Sie nehmen können. The first part of this evening will be around the instrument. 25 minutes. So, ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie alle gekommen sind im wunderbaren Museum Tängeli. Und wir bedanken uns auch sehr bei dem Museum Tängeli. Roland Wetzel ist hier Direktor. Vielen Dank, Roland, das ist großartig, sind wir hier. Und es gibt im Moment 5 wunderbare Einzelausstellungen in Tängeli, in verschiedenen Räumen. Eigentlich jeder hat einen eigenen Profil. Und ich habe das Gefühl, dass diese auch sehr gut da reinpasst. I will continue now in English because we have an online audience. And this will be live streamed and is recorded for our digital space. And I think that this space has a certain beautiful, I would say, dramaturgy. If you have the flying upwards, downwards, old plane from Spain from the 30s, crashing maybe. And then we have the burnt instruments as a possible result from civilization, and then we have indigenous works on the walls showing color and life. And even in this space, then later on in the evening, we have our talk where you're all here for with a very special panel. But tonight we start and we continue also the next days here in the museum with a program dedicated to Culturescapes 2021 Amazon. And the program from what we do here in Tängeli is written on the wall here. There will be a very interesting evening as well, Saturday and Sunday, with the same musicians, artists from tonight, plus the one who painted these works, Iba of the Honey Queen. And that performance will be Saturday, Sunday, consisting of a silent movie from the 1920s, and then a so-called shaman night, where Iba, the painter of these works, will sing. But tonight we have the pleasure to have a premiere in Basel of the Burnt Instrument Orchestra. It's one of our first ideas, one of the first trips we made to Sao Paulo, where I could meet Livio Trachtenberg and Marco Scarassatti, an Emerson boy. And we were discussing different possibilities for collaboration, and there was a whole list of ideas. And we could realize now 2 of them. This is actually a result of a residency in Graubünden, in school. There is this Fundación Nairs, and Marco and Livio and Gilberto, they were there in residency for 6 weeks, taking woods from Engadine and worked with them with a fire, and as you can see, and then actually created this sound sculpture. And they worked at the same time back in Brazil on a composition. And actually today, there will be the 25 minutes composition first. Then Marco will tell you some words about the process he went through and why they did this. And after that, we move on to a more comfortable seating area. So I hope you enjoy this evening. I can already announce now that after everything, there will be another offer from the Tengeli Museum for an apéro outside of the museum. So please stay and have a talk with us also afterwards. Thank you very much, and see you later.
Good night. First of all, I would like to thank the audience that's present here and their homes through the streaming. I'd like to thank Culture Escapes Festival, Hurian, and all the team, the production team and the technical team. Thank you, the Tangali Museum. It's a dream to stay here. I would like to thank my partner in this project, Lívio Trachtenberg, a great Brazilian composer and a great friend. Thanks to Gilberto Macruz, who worked as my assistant, but he is a great, great artist too. Thanks Emerson Boy, who shared the performance and the days in the Switzerland with us. Thank you, Iban, to give me a bit of the spirit of forest with his song. Thank you, our families who are waiting for us after 2 months of work. Thank you, those who came before us. Thank you, the people of the forest. Without them, the forest would no longer exist since much time ago. Thank you for the spirits of the forest. In Brazil, we call forest selva, mato, Mato Grosso, bosque, arvoredo. We also call it mata. Mata is the name, is the installation. It's not only bio, mata bio. This work echoes the dispute and war that has been taking place in Brazil since 1500. Against the forest, against the forest peoples, whether they are indigenous peoples of what was called America or African indigenous peoples. And this unequal war is a dispute, the perspective of human beings' relationship with the forest, with the nature, with the life. On the one hand, this work showed the agonizing sound of Amazon forest, which connects through its roots, speakers, to all the forests in the world, like a mother forest. Not only Amazonian, but all the Brazilian forest. The sounds are of destruction. Trees being cut down, trees falling, being burned. On the other hand, no less agonizing, this burnt woods connect itself to the highest knowledge and technology of the people, of the forest peoples, of the peoples of forest. The contact with the forest spirits, the spirits of forest. Contact with the sacred trees, the trees of the sacred songs that can reconstruct life through music. A moahi of the Yanomami people, their sacred tree of songs. Matabio, burned instrument orchestra, is a forest, and it is an orchestra of sacred trees that try through sound and music to restore the forest to life. Each sound sculpture is a moahi for us. The forest, that is the mata, is living organism in which many lives are intertwined. For the people of the forest, that is for the indigenous peoples of forest, the tree, it gives the house, it gives the medicine, it gives the tool, it gives the protection, it gives the dye for painting, for the clothes, painting, it gives the food, it is the spirits that gives then connects with the earth itself and existence. It's the sacred, it is the secret, it's the mystery. It's the language and structure of your thinking. It is your story, your history, and your life. Without it, they cannot exist. Unfortunately, this war is not over. It kills every day. It destroys and devastates the forests, the rivers, the people every day, to favor a perspective of an industrial world, a world of business, agribusiness, looking the food industry, mining, capitalists that think the forests are at the service of the human being, that is currently at the service of the capital. The Bolsonaro government is a genocidal, ecocidal, cruel, but it is only there because it interested this logic of fall. Many companies that include that support research and art and culture defend the monetization of ecology with green assets, actives. Somehow are directly or indirectly involved in this devastation process. All this, some sculpture, when we play our hands dirt, because all it's involved, implicated in the protection of forest. As Davi Kopenawa, it's not possible to wash the hand, like Pontius Pilate said. As Davi Kopenawa would say, without the forest, there is no history, there is nothing, there is no life. That's why when we play each of the sound sculptures made of fallen and burned tree wood roots connect with Amazon mother forest, which agonize in the face of this crime. Our hands get dirt because we are all are involved. Either we defend forest and mata and forest peoples, or we listen to the knowledge of those peoples who have been on the planet for much longer than we have. Or we are doomed to death. Long live the peoples of forest. Long live the indigenous people of the world, around the world. In particular, those of America and Africa. And out Bolsonaro, fora Bolsonaro. Fora Bolsonaro. And who supports him in the prospects of transforming our forest into manufacturing parks, into pastures for the food industry, into deserts where life will end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marco, for your very special talk. Thank you. And thank you, Marco, Livio, and Emerson Boy, for your music. Now the time when I pick up the ball of the evening of today and invite everybody and invite our panelists to the podium. And while everybody is moving and finding a comfortable position for this evening and for our talk, I wanted to say hello to our online audience. We are offline but also online today, as Jurian mentioned. And for our online audience, we invite you to be the very active part of the discussion today. You can do it via Slido. And even this moment, or maybe in a few minutes, you will see on your screen a picture with a QR code. You can scan it with your phone. It brings you to a Slido app where you can put your questions. And you can put your questions during the talk, you can put your questions after the talk, and my colleagues will look at them and read them to us, so they will not disappear. Thank you. And now once again, welcome everyone. I think it's harder to imagine a more special opening and introduction to the evening and to the discussion, which title is Forest in Arts and Culture, than what Bio and Marco did for us tonight. This discussion is the first one in a series of 3 panel discussions called 3 Perspectives on the Amazon, which are organized by Culturescapes 2021 Amazonia Festival, together with Voraus, and with the support and collaboration from SDC, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. I think most of you noticed, but maybe also felt tonight with the music and with the Marco's presentation, how different the feeling and the words about the Amazon, of the Amazon, were from what he's saying, and how most of us, most of the time, actually think and imagine about the Amazon. Because if there's one thing that we probably everybody in this audience, as diverse and as many as we are, can agree upon, is the importance of the Amazon as a unique ecosystem, as the home of multiple indigenous nations and also incredible diversity of animals and plants and insects also. The importance is sort of not really doubted by anyone. The destruction is going on. But when we think about how we think about the Amazon, just if you imagine the Amazon for a moment, mostly and most oftenly that's the lavish greenness of the trees and the beauty of the river that streams in there. We can also think that Amazon embraces 9 countries, goes over political borders of 9 countries. But how often do we think that it's also a home of hundreds of indigenous nations, their only home? When we talk about the destruction of the Amazon, which is drastic, how do we think about it? How do we talk about it? In numbers, in percentages, in square kilometers? And when we think about the time, we usually say, yeah, since the end of 60s, the large scale, the destruction of the Amazon began. But if you think from inside, if we ask people from inside, they talk about 500 years. And we can imagine, and we will never be able to count all the multiple causes of the destruction of the Amazon. But what if we ask ourselves about the source, about the archaeologist and researcher and architect Paulo Tavares talks about the geographical and geological evidence of the complex societies that for hundreds and hundreds of years were rebuilding, replanting the Amazonian forest. So they created this ecosystem that we now very often think of and imagine as a pristine, as something which existed by itself from the beginning of time. By this, he's saying that what is often believed as being natural is actually social. It's people who created the forest that we talk about today, which is so important. Very important Brazilian indigenous leader and thinker and a writer, Elton Krenak, wrote that it's only possible to imagine nature if you're outside of it. How could a baby that is inside its mother's uterus imagine the mother? And how could a seed imagine the fruit? It's from the outside that one imagines the inside. And what if we imagine that maybe it's this outside position and perception which puts the environment, the nature, somewhere outside and sees it as different and alien and even subjugated to people as a source, or maybe one of the sources, of the exhaustion and the destruction, while the view from inside, and Marco said it today, is that the forest is the forest of the people, where everything and everyone is connected, the people and animal and fish and spirits and ancestors, and it's all one. We will try and look at this difference of perspectives today in our talk, because our panelists are also very different, coming from very different backgrounds and different countries. We'll try to touch upon what is happening to the Amazon and in the Amazon today, and what has been done already and what still needs to be done. And of course, our main question is what is the role of arts and culture in protecting the Amazon and in advocating for Amazon, both locally and globally. And with this, I would like to finish the introduction and move to our panelists. And I'm very happy and very honored to introduce the three people that are on stage with me tonight. And I will start with Vandria. Vandria Barari is a ceramist artist from the Barari nation of the Lower Tapajós in Pará, in Brazil. She's communicator and activist for the rights of indigenous people. Vandria is also the first indigenous person from her region with a degree in law from the University of Western Pará. She works as a producer and cultural manager that organizes exhibitions and cultural spaces. And she's here in Basel now because she's an artist in residence with Culturescapes Amazonia in partnership with Atelier Mondial. And if you're interested, which I hope you are, her installation called Ancestral Resistance is to open in Casco, Basel on October 29. The next one further from me is Federico Camelli, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Environmental Policy Lab at ETH Zurich, where he conducts research on the impact of private policies to reduce commodity-driven deforestation in the Amazon and West Africa. He considers himself an interdisciplinary social scientist, holds a PhD in economics from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences, with a thesis on the drivers of Amazon fires and policies to address them. Over the course of last 8 years, he's been conducting research in eastern Brazilian Amazon. And the last but not the least is Martin Yagi, who grew up in Gümlingen near Bern, here in Switzerland, and got his master's degree in geography from the University of Bern. After his studies, he volunteered as a human rights observer in Colombia for Peace Brigades International, and afterwards worked in Fribourg for headquarters of PBI in Switzerland. And as the next step, or one of the next steps, Martin joined SDC Humanitarian Aid to come back to Colombia years later as the head of SDC office for 4 years, and then go on to Lima, Peru, as the head of international cooperation in the Andes. And a few months ago, he returned to Switzerland to be chief of staff for SDC's humanitarian aid unit. This said, I want to start our discussion with a series of questions, but the one main question which I would address to every one of you is, every one of you are living in the Amazon, and the two of you have spent considerable time in the Amazon. So my main question would be, how do you feel the Amazon and the forest? But starting with Vandria, I also wanted to move this question a bit further and ask, indigenous people are not just the people who live in the forest. They're also the ones that suffer the most from the destruction of the forest. And you once said that the culture of your people is something which connects you to the forest, to your territory and to your ancestors, and that you feel yourself as a part of a forest. So my question to you would be, what does it mean to be a part of the forest, and what does it mean to have the forest destroyed around you?
First, thank you everyone to coming here. I'm Ivandria. I come from Alter do Chão, indigenous land, is here in the heart of Amazon. Yeah, you can see we have rivers, 2 rivers, Tapajós and the Amazonas. It's the meeting of the water. And I'm a ceramist and the indigenous activist from my place. And what is art for us? First, if we don't have a forest, there is not art. To speak about art is to say that our territory, the Amazon, the largest tropical forest on the planet, is our life. We are sons and daughters of the Mother Earth. She welcomes us, she feeds us, and teaches us the art of living, the art of pottery, of weaving, the art of planting, of medical planting, of healing, of the forest, of singing, dancing, fishing, and hunting, the art of educating to protect, the art of sharing and living as a collective. Our culture and our tradition, we learn this through oral transmission, through listening our elders, the great master of knowledge and wisdom. Everything we learned, we pass on generation to generation. Our art is the same time ancient and contemporary. Our art is collective and spirituality. The indigenous art is my identity, my history, my trajectory. Indigenous art is my resistance to our existence. Indigenous art is the women's warriors who are largely dedicated to art. We have women's composers, singers, actors, fashion design, cultural producer, poet, photographer, filmmaker, writers, and educators. It's what is mean for us, the art and our territory. And in Brazil, when with the deforestation in the Amazon, we indigenous people, we lose the biodiversity, our territories, and our rivers. It also increases the threat and the death of defender of the forest, the sale and invasion of our land. And this year, in September, the Brazilian science pointed that we have already lost in the Amazon a forest area large 4,000 of football fields. And between 2019 and 2020, 49 tons of gold were extracted from areas with evidence of irregularity, such as indigenous land and protected area. Almost of the country's gold products is exported with Canada, United Kingdom, and Switzerland. And those who exported gold from Brazil contribute also for illegal mining in the Amazon. In every 10 indigenous people, Munduruku, 6 people are contaminated by mercury, because the mercury contaminates the ground, the river, and reach our body. Last week, we have 2 children that was playing by the river, close a machine of gold that was extracting gold. And this machine soaked up these 2 children. One, a peer, died next day, and another one was disappeared. The agribusiness, illegal miner, cattle farmer, illegal lodger advanced to our territory in the Amazon. And I ask to you that are here, who are this responsibility? When you buy gold, when you buy wood, when you buy soybean, we contribute to the deforestation of the Amazon. We need, I come here to Europe to say that because not is the responsibility of Brazil, but the country that buy this product that is exported from the Amazon. And you need for urgence to break up with this devastation with the tropical forests all over the world. The nation needed to be unity, to create project and the idea to keep standing the forest and save life in the Amazon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vandria. Thank you for coming and for staying in Switzerland and for saying everything that you said here. It's not easy to speak after that, Martin, but I would ask you to do that, because if there is one almost perfect person to follow up on what Vandria said, it's probably you as a Swiss governmental and diplomatic employee who spent, not in Brazil, but in Colombia and Peru, 9 years of your career. What does it mean and how does it feel to be the Swiss official after what the Vandria said? And what is being done and what can be done from the Swiss side to stop what's happening?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's indeed a difficult question, and but it's a very important one. We are somehow all part of this destruction. In a way, it's certainly linked to the way how we are living since after the Second World War, I'd say, where we have a lot of economic growth, where we had also, let's say, this vision of a very aggressive kind of development in a way, and this is all leading then to this kind of problems. Now, as a Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation, we try to foster sustainable development. So we try to push for processes that try to take into account the needs of the local communities and their visions that this is possible. So you'd like to strengthen them. You would like also to take into account the cultural needs of these peoples. And we certainly also are very much aware of that we cannot make development without really changing also our way how we are doing business. I mean also the business community as such. So we have also started to work a lot with companies or association of companies that try not just to do the profit, what was at the core at what time at once, but also trying to work in a way that you can develop a business that is also sustaining the environment and that is creating decent jobs and is in that sense also supporting this kind of sustainability. But it's a very difficult task, I would say. We are still struggling a lot to it. We have the Agenda 2030 with the Sustainable Development Goals as a major let's say, a vision where all the countries in the world would like to get there, and I have to say it's the forces that are somehow behind this kind of destructions are very strong, but they are also very important and good examples of how companies try to readapt and to shape their kind of how they are doing business. And from our point of view of SDC, I would say what we try to do in some parts and with our cooperation programs is also really to see how we can, through arts and culture, how we can mobilize another kind of population and of thinking, and how we can also seek innovations that might contribute also to this change of behavior that is needed so much in the world. So just to give you some examples. I was living in Bogota for 4 years, and then in Lima. So we were somehow not living directly in the Amazon, but of course we were very much aware of the importance of the Amazon, because the rains in Bogota, also the rains in Lima, the water that is pouring down the hills or the Andes. This is the rain that is produced in the Amazon. The air also is changed, and the Amazon is a producer of oxygen, etc. So I think we are very much connected all to the Amazon. We are very much aware that this is an important biome for human mankind. But on the other side, we are also very much aware that we have also to change the business as we are doing now, and we are trying to get there. But I can tell you it's not an easy way. But I think what we had today here is to feel somehow that we are all interconnected, and we have to be all part of trying to solve these problems. And it's really everybody that somehow is as a part of this destruction, but everybody can also try to get to be a solution of it. But we have to change, I think, the way how we are doing business. I think that's the business model, the economy. This is something that stands for me, and also in parts of SEC. This is now something we really try to see how we can go to less based on purely on profit and more on social, cultural, and also environmental sustainability.
Thank you, Martin. Interconnectedness seemed to be a good word and good notion that might provide some answers to the questions of destruction of the Amazon. And we have another voice, another testimony of interconnectedness from the Peruvian Amazon, talking about how deforestation and climate change influences not just Amazonian ecosystems in general, but the lives of the people there.
La vida en el Amazonas gira alrededor del río y la selva, pero con el aumento de las temperaturas en los últimos años han cambiado los ciclos del agua. En Perú, los periodos secos se han hecho más largos en el centro y sur de la cuenca, afectando la producción de alimentos, mientras las lluvias en el norte son más intensas, causando inundaciones que lo arrasan todo. Las alteraciones drásticas de los ecosistemas amazónicos tienen impactos a nivel local, regional y global, y ponen en riesgo la vida de sus habitantes y de las especies. Uno de los factores que produce estos cambios es el uso de sustancias tóxicas y la explotación sistemática de los recursos. Los agroquímicos, por ejemplo, usados en cultivos extensivos para que los cultivos crezcan más rápido y sin plagas, han demostrado ser peligrosos. Roxana Borda es una joven indígena, estudiante de desarrollo rural y alimentación. Es nativa de la comunidad Santuato, localizada en el área de Ceja de Selva, en la provincia de Convención, en Perú. Ella ha sido testigo de cómo los cambios ambientales han puesto en riesgo la capacidad de cientos de comunidades para conseguir alimentos que sean suficientes para cubrir sus necesidades nutricionales y les permita tener una vida activa y saludable. Son comunidades como la de Roxana las que viven en el Amazonas. Y es que mientras en las ciudades se pueden encontrar los alimentos en los supermercados, en el Amazonas las comunidades dependen de la pesca, los cultivos o la caza responsable para poder conseguirlos.
Sí, a grandes rasgos lo que se observa y es muy palpable también verlo es el tema de aumento de temperatura, escasez de lluvias y también variación en temas de precipitaciones o temporadas, tanto de temporada de lluvias y como de verano. Ello también perjudica lo que es la agricultura y todas las actividades que las personas dependen como tal de lo que se produzca en sus territorios.
La vida en el Amazonas depende del equilibrio del ecosistema, desde las lluvias, los ríos, los árboles, hasta la comida que se cultiva, los animales y los humanos, las formas de cuidarse y de sentirse seguros, todo está conectado. Por eso, para Roxana, es fundamental que conozcamos a quienes habitan estos territorios y los escuchemos.
El mensaje que les daría a ellos, jóvenes, es básicamente en temas, por ejemplo, de alimentación, tener conciencia qué alimento estamos ingiriendo, la procedencia, la historia de ese alimento. Porque detrás de un alimento hay muchísima historia, todo tiene un proceso, de dónde vino, y cómo fue, con qué manos se realizaron, y el impacto también que tiene en el medio ambiente, y sobre todo si pensamos en la Amazonía, muchos de los recursos que están en nuestro día a día provienen de ella. Lo que es en realidad la Amazonía no solo es agua, bosques o algunos animales, es mucho más que eso.
When we talk and when we imagine deforestation, quite often the main reason or something which pops up in the head first is the forest fires, right? They're most impressive, they're most scary. But even now with this story from Peruvian Amazon, the reasons for crisis and for degradation of the forest are not necessarily only fires. And I wanted to ask, Federico is a person who worked extensively with the different causes and also implications of deforestation, degradation in the Amazon. What are those causes? What is happening there?
Thank you for the question. It's a massive one. It's worth years of research for many people. But let's try to define first what do we mean by, let's say, devastation of the Amazon. So if we just consider deforestation in the last decade, we lost about 80,000 square kilometers. That's like Switzerland times 2. But then if we look at forest fires, about 815,000 square kilometers were burned. That's like Switzerland plus Germany times 2, plus the French and Italian speaking Switzerland. This is massive. It's about 10 times the area that was cleared. So this may sound a bit confusing because often in the media, deforestation and fires were assimilated as the same thing. They are not. So I would like to tackle the two a bit separately. So the first one, deforestation, what is it? Is the clear cut of the forest. You can imagine Mr. João with a chainsaw chopping one tree at a time. That happens, but it doesn't justify, it wouldn't explain such a massive clearing. What you should picture is two really heavy tractors with in Portuguese, correntão, a huge heavy chain linking the two. And these tractors proceed in parallel and they tear down all the trees in front of them and in between them. After that, the logs are left on the ground, they dry, and they are burnt. And then the land is clear, is very fertile from the ashes, and often people throw seeds for pastures, even from the airplanes, and the cows to graze, and this prevents the forest to grow again. And that's why we observe that 90% of the Amazon that is cleared is pasture. But not all of it is the final use. Not all this 90% of pasture will stay pasture. Some of it will stay pasture just to preserve the ground, avoid the forest regrowth. This is land speculation, waiting for that forest to earn more value as infrastructure expands and then be sold again. Some of it will be converted to soy, and some, of course, stay there for cattle ranching, which is still the main driver of deforestation. The cattle that is produced there is mostly consumed in Brazil. About 75–80% of the cattle is consumed domestically, while the rest is sold to China, to Europe, a lot to Saudi Arabia, while soy is actually indeed mostly exported. Another main driver of deforestation is mining. There are 100 million hectares of concession lease from the government in the Amazon. Not all of them are active. Most of them are not active and still forest. So this is a huge ticking bomb for the Amazon. Another, of course, is road expansion of infrastructures like as dams. All these development projects bring people, and with people, further clearing. Now let's move, I have short time. Let's move to the other part, the other 90% of the land that we see burning. What is it? It's forest, of course, and a lot of it is already cleared land, is indigenous lands, is farms, and when this forest ravages this land, they cause massive harms. What burns is pastures, is crops, is livestock, is houses, is the homeland of people. And this is a massive struggle, especially for the local people that are dependent on fire for their livelihood, all those tiny smallholders that rely on slash and burn agriculture, and whose knowledge is now out of date because of climate change, and the forest become more flammable. When the fire entered the forest, you shouldn't imagine like the big forest fires that we have here in the Mediterranean or in California. They are tiny raster fires that burn only the debris on the ground. But this is enough to kill all the big trees that are not resistant to that heat shock. But this happens slowly, 1 in 2 years. You enter a forest that burns once, twice, and you have a cemetery of dead standing trees. And this is a huge shame because that's land that cannot be used anywhere in other ways. There is some forest regrowing, but you cannot harvest anything, plant or graze anything in that place because trees are still there. And still that land emits a ton of emission, is a huge source of biodiversity losses. New estimates show that during drought years, when these fires are most extensive, forest fires cause as much carbon emission as degradation. And this is a big shame because it's both environmental harm and social harm. So it's true that we need to work to change the business model. There are a lot of conflicts of interests. However, this is an area that we could solve and tackle right now. It's true that we are doing already a lot for deforestation, which is now around 10,000 square kilometers a year under the Bolsonaro government, 5,000–6,000 before. It could be easily 30,000– 40,000 without other policies. But much more can be done against degradation, for which there's nothing done at the moment. I think I need to wrap up.
You're actually at a very interesting moment, and you're basically answering my question and the next question to everybody. So yeah, I ask it and you can pick it up and then we can go around with this question. Things are being done today. To which extent is it enough what's being done today? Is it possible to think and imagine nowadays that we can restore, revive the forest somehow, or we're just talking about the saving and preserving what's left and that's the main goal?
I think in times of climate change we learned that we cannot afford or, we need only and. And so what do we have on the ground at the moment? We mostly have policies to prevent forests to keep clearing, and we have policies to, let's say, try to replant trees, so-called forest restoration. Public policies, we have parks. The Amazon is covered for more than half of it with parks and indigenous lands. That's a lot of space. 15% of the land is public but undesignated. It means it's there, it can be grabbed, it's not well defended. About 35% is private land. And there are policies, the so-called forest code, that mandate that 50–80% of the land inside private areas needs to be forest, which is not always respected. But we can talk about it more later. It's a big, big topic. The other thing is happening on the side of companies. They are trying to prevent or clean their supply chain from deforestation. So they mandate producers not to deforest, otherwise they will not buy their product. On the side of producers, this means that if you deforest, you are not able to sell your products. This works very well with soy, not so well with cattle. We are working on that. The other main thing is to stopping infrastructural development. Again, if you build new roads, people come. For degradation, I think we should work a lot on fire use. And another main thing is, timber. Most of it is harvested illegally. Even the former Ministry of Environment, Ricardo Salles, he was involved in a massive laundering scheme of timber from the Amazon. And yeah, I can leave more to you.
About the restoring and the left forest that we have in the Amazon. I mean that I think the system of economic make pressure of the tropical forest, indigenous land, and the park, national park, that is the protected area. And we have Bolsonaro has big project of international and the national company to setting up in the Amazon. And most of the investment, it's coming from international and the national bank, to set up the company in the Amazon. We had already the dam in Xingu, Belo Monte. Do you know what is the first big impediment that coming to our area to exploit? The company need electricity. And the electricity is the first step for this exploitation. And Belo Monte coming is the first one, but it will be a big instruction to exploit the Amazon. With the Belo Monte set up there, the company, they control of the level of the river, and we lose tons of fish in Xingu. and many indigenous and the traditional people was moved from their land. And about deforestation, yeah, in my region where I'm come from, Santarém, yeah, we have a company, Cargill, is an international American company of grain that exported soybean from the Amazon to Europe, you know. And I think to restore the land that is the forest already, it takes time, 14 years, yeah, for 14, 15 years, yeah. And we need, what I have to say, we need to protect the area that we have already. When we deforest the forest, the Amazon, also we lose life. Indigenous leaders are dying to protect. Yeah, and I think it's the dynamic of the life that the planet has. Yeah, of the consume press our territory, our indigenous land.
Yeah, okay. I think there are a lot of ways that mankind is trying to stop this destruction. Well, at the global level, we have the biodiversity agenda or the Paris Agreement on climate change. At least this gives some, or the Sustainable Development Agenda, this gives some idea, vision, etc. Then at the national level, in Brazil, we had quite a good monitoring system on what is going on with the territory, where are people, or where the cutting or the deforestation is going on. Now it has been weakened, unfortunately, this monitoring system. So this was very important also to stop quickly deforestation. Of course, the laws, there are existing laws also on national level. Law enforcement is not working so well normally. So this is certainly at the state level things that one could pursue. We also have, of course, Switzerland with the Mercosur, with the community, the economic community, where Brazil is also a part of it. We have the possibilities also to put in this free trade agreement some environmental agenda points, etc. So these are all, let's say, in terms of national, international law-setting mechanisms. There's quite a lot already being done. I think the main issue is how to implement this and how to enforce it, that it's been done. And there, I think, again, one important part is how also to change the economic model, how also the companies that are working in these countries think of how they could probably work differently from how they are doing it now, less extractive, more including communities, also paying better salaries, probably have less profit. Of course, this has an impact then also on our schemes here in Switzerland, on the funds that are investing in this. So this would mean that everybody has to cut down a little bit their way of living, etc. So these are also in the private sector. There are a lot of interesting possibilities to do it. And then, of course, at the community level, trying to enforce the communities that they are interconnected and they have one voice. And they can do the advocacy role that is needed also to push the governance or also the private sector towards a more sustainable way of doing business. And then, of course, individually, everybody knows that eating too much meat is not good, because this is also driving deforestation and other problems, diabetes or whatever. But these are then very, very much difficult individual decisions as well. So I think it's a complex and it's a very tough race somehow against time. You know that it might be a tipping point, that some in one moment might just become a grassland, so a savanna, and not anymore a rainforest. Is it possible in the climate models that this might occur? Of course, then it would be a really dramatic change of this huge biome. So I think there are a lot of ways to do it, but we still have. I think we are not moving fast enough. That's a little bit my feeling. Yeah.
I noticed a discrepancy in the way of talking, because the way Wander talks, you say stop, and the way Martin talks is, let's change, let's, put down, let's slow down. is there a middle way? Can there be a middle way between let's stop now and let's slow down and find maybe different, maybe more sustainable ways of dealing with the forest? That's the question to all of you.
I can try. So we are coming to the node, right, where we have really a competing interest between development and environmentalism, indigenous and colonizers. There are 30 million of people in the Brazilian Amazon, just in Brazil, and these people we can discuss to what right they do what they do, but they are human, and as such they have a dignity and they have aspirations in their life, and I think this needs to be taken into account. There are, of course, massive power imbalances that mess up this potentially fruitful discussion. What I think is worth noting is that the use that we make of resources in the Amazon is extremely inefficient. We could have so much more development on so much fewer land. Pasture in the Amazon is exploited at its minimum at the moment. There is less than 1 cow per hectare. There are 300 million hectares of pasture that are degraded, that produce almost nothing. And there is not forest, it's grassland, where there could be forest through reforestation, or there could be more intensive production to satisfy the economic need of these people. This is, for instance, one of the key. There are a few spots where we can actually work to improve things, and this is one. Another is to dramatically, put a bit more pressures on companies working in the Amazon to really speed up their efforts. They are, because of the due diligence law that prevent deforestation to be imported in the EU, now many companies around the world are really taking it seriously, and they're starting monitoring their producers and trying to get them to stop deforesting. But these companies have been committing they are committing to no deforestation for the last 10 years. Now they renew their commitment for the next 10 or 15 years. Let's make sure that they are not just kicking the can down the road and repeating the doing nothing.
I don't believe of a sustainable project from international company. Why? Because we have many examples in the Amazon that in the same time international mining exploiting the area and polluting a big river, they also developing some sustainable project to say for the world they is okay, but it's not okay. They kill, our organism. We have to think that the river they have rights, the forest they have rights, and the animals. An international company, Cargill, that they also operate with some activities, criminal activities, when the plantation of soybeans in the summer, they started to put poison in the plantation grain. And 2 days after, the communities go to the forest and they find so many animals killed, especially monkey. And also, we have lost a community of bees in the forest. The bees is an animal so important for the reproduction of the forest, fruits, and the plantation, of the forest, to grow life in the forest. And I don't believe in this system that destroy lives.
Yeah, I think to stop that normally there are combinations in terms of different approaches. So I think it will certainly be important to keep much more territory than now in the Amazon protected, completely protected. But this is also this will have to be somehow reimbursed or refunded. So I think there's still no way how to deal with this question of who will pay for it and how. and who will get the money? This is a huge question. So for areas that should be protected completely, because this I think, as we are living in a world that is based on this kind of exchanges, that's a huge incentive. Of course, this is a very difficult question, and it's not yet treated. But there are a lot of other places where you do not have any more prime forest, and in these places also where the people are living, there I think there is no way just to protect and tell the people you cannot live anymore in these regions. So there, the only solution is trying to get more a sustainable way of doing business. For these people, it's very difficult. It's very tough. The economic model we have in the world is not really helping a lot in stopping this kind of pressure. So I think the only way is that I think the solution, or the private sector has to change its model and to probably to be let's say able, or also to be willing to do less profit and to invest more in communities and in environmental protections. Then probably it could help a little bit, but this would lower, the speed of our growth and all this. And normally countries are not yet willing to accept that, because they want to pay or they want to have the money to pay for their social schemes, etc. So these are very, very complex questions. But I think what is very important is really to try really to see how we can protect those areas that are still not under pressure, and there I think how to reimburse, or how you do payment schemes for this kind of territories is a huge question that is dealt with. But there is, at least in my knowledge, there is not yet a good solution for that.
To find solutions would be a very ambitious goal for such a discussion. But having a different perspectives and maybe challenging each other with the different perspectives and sort of enriching our understanding of the problem was definitely one of them. And just before passing the mic to the audience, which I really hope you have questions and comments, I want us to bring back here and now to the discussion, which was about the role of arts and culture, not as a solution, but as a possible also way of talking or advocating or showing something about the Amazon. You are in different position as an artist, as a researcher, as a official, but still, do you think arts and culture can be one of the ways of getting closer to the Amazon?
I believe the arts can change people. Why? Because I also organize an indigenous exhibition in my place with music, indigenous music, ritual, our food, and we have a public diversity. And I was standing by a guy that he was a ruralist, a businessman that has a plantation of soybean, something, and he was looking our ritual, and he say, "Oh, I don't believe how we destroy the forests, we destroy the land of these people." Yeah, and the art can change people, not change, but think about what we're doing. Yeah, and Alter do Chão, where I come from, we have a big river and many beaches, and people that are fighting for our identity, yeah, that was nearly disappeared with the colonization. And we have our art, yeah, ceramic, the healing plant, our shaman, and one thing, how we can use, yeah, the Amazon to contribute to protect. We can have activity of ecological tourism, yeah, develop project in the community, directly with the community, yeah, that extract medicine plants, oils, everything that we collect, that we don't destroy the forest. I believe in this way, yeah, and we also can use the river, yeah, the forest, and you don't keep cut it down. How this system do, you know, and you destroy a big area, you pollute a river, yeah, and at the same time you give money for, yeah, to meet your responsibility. But the scientists, Brazilian scientists, say that we lose billions of money with the forest down, more than the company giving fund to protect the forest. We needed to think about what is the problem, where is the root of the problem, this system, where it's coming from. Because we have Bolsonaro government, we have international company, yeah, we have banks, yeah, we have the politician that's all involved in this system. And we indigenous people and the traditional community, we have to fight with this powerful system. It's powerful politician, yeah, that make the law and change the law of environment to open indigenous land and protect the area to exploit the Amazon.
The two of you, just with asking to be very short if possible, that we still have a chance for questions.
Okay, yeah, as I said, we are always trying to support communities, and often also through cultural approaches. So we did it with COICA, which is an organization in the Amazon composed by the 9 countries, Amazon countries, and we did a small activity or small project support so that the youngsters in this organization of indigenous peoples will somehow learn to better communicate and to be able to also better advocate for their people and the rights of their territory, etc. So this was just one entry point that could or we thought is important to strengthen the community so that they are somehow able, as you said, to be organized against these huge different powers that are around and somehow putting these indigenous peoples in very difficult positions. So that's just one way of an entry point. Of course, it's not enough by far, but it's important to have this support, this bottom-up support for the young people.
Quickie, I think art can do something to for the Amazon. Big yes. So art reflects the society of its time. If you go to the Amazon, to a cattle rancher, you listen to music that talks about how beautiful the life of a cowboy is. So in a way, art perpetuates our society, but it can also challenge it. Art can question our perceptions. It can, let's say, reveal the fact that the way we see the real is not so obvious. And I think there are movements in Brazil, artists, that are doing this. Once interviewing the head of a slaughterhouse in the eastern Amazon, he was ranting of all these leftist NGOs, and then he mentioned, and those artsy people in Belém, these young artists in the capital of the eastern Amazon. They were doing something that was annoying him in terms of changing the narrative. Art was powerful.
I like the part about art being annoying. I think that's really cool. One of the best parts of art. I pass the microphone to my colleagues from Voraus, Melanie Sen and Rachel Amaka, and we will be happy to collect a few questions from the audience and then maybe a few questions from online. Please, questions, comments? Yes, Maya, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Maya Quilolo. I'm from a Quilombola community in Brazil, a traditional community in Brazil. I'm feeling well represented by Vandria. But I want to ask you, like, what you mean when you say development. Because this is a huge thing for me, you know, because we can talk. For me, it's very interesting when you say like, who will pay the bills? But at the first, you can think that we are paying this bill. But this is not true. We are trying to stop that the bills came so hard. So in the world, we have small communities that have to deal with the international pressure, with international power, with so many things. And I'm asking you, because I'm here in this continent at the first time. And I think that that's the point, because for me it's very weird that we can talk about the end of this world, but we cannot talk about change our lives. So for example, if you think the traditional Chinese medicine, the books that was wrote by traditional Chinese medicine was wrote like 2,000 years ago. And the question that they try to answer is why the humanity is coming sick, why our lives is becoming miserable, why we are living this way. If we have a beautiful planet, if we have so many good things in our life, to destroy somebody's land, to destroy somebody's lives. So I'm talking like this because I think that it's not only about environmental, you know. It's about the way that we can continue living this planet. So it's something that it's not only about us, you understand? It's about how can we change our way of life. And really, because this build will be for everybody.
Thank you, Maya. Do you want to say something about understanding of development?
I can try. You raised the most fundamental questions of all. I think that until far we just put patches. This is the real one. So where we are going once we fix all the problems, and assuming that we manage to fix the problems. And so the environmental crisis is fundamentally a crisis of culture. So we are lost in where we are going. And that's exactly what you're saying. So what does it mean, development in the Amazon? It's up to the people that live in the Amazon. We are in a democracy. And there are some checks and balances to maybe give more voices to the minorities, like indigenous, like quilombolas, the descendants of the slaves that were brought to the Amazon to work in the extractive sector. I think what we need a sort of paradigm shift in development. We cannot think of development as just continuation of the extractive mindset, this converting the green hell to civilization. And when we are talking about who pays the bills and compensation mechanisms, this cannot, for instance, be just payments for people just to leave the forest as is while preserving the business as usual. It should be something that changed dramatically the economy. And there are some new direction towards the bioeconomy sector, but much still needs to be done. And yeah, the people of the Amazon should also decide themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that definition. In the definition of our work, our daily business as a development agency, that it has changed over the years. So in the very beginning, probably development was very much something that had to be connected, or still is in some of our thinking, to economic growth, purely economic growth, and having people, let's say, with more salaries and more possibilities to buy stuff. And this changed somehow in the 90s, at least the paradigm slowly changed to this sustainable development, this triangle between economic, social, cultural, and environmental sustainability. The question is somehow if this is possible with our system, with our economic system, which is somehow very growth-based, actually, and it's well, there are a lot of theories about that, and scientists that think that or are trying to see if it's really possible to have a qualitative growth model or not. So these are the big questions. But yes, it's true. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense just to accumulate stuff and power, and then you're not living in a nice world, and you're not happy. Of course, this is some, but I think it's a very tricky question. There are a lot of difficult questions to solve, and a lot of powers, and especially our economic system is really very strong, and to get out of or to have a new idea on how to design something different is a very tough question, and we're trying to get it. But I'm not sure if we are able to do it at least fast enough. Yeah.
Vandre, do you want to touch on development? But I would really ask you to be very short, because we're running out of time, and it will be really great to have at least a few questions from the online audience.
Development for us is having our forests standing, our rivers clean and free is for us, that is. And we guarantee the future of our future generation.
So if Melanie can maybe bring several questions together, if you see them. Or
so
one
we've
big
had
one.
quite a few online questions. Thank you to the online audience for asking them. I think we will just have to pick one, just because of time reasons, but thank you for interacting. So one question that brings in rather foreign policy point of view, is Switzerland as a part of Europe ready to commit for a Swiss Green Deal aligned with the EU to contribute to healthy rainforests in future? What would you think of that? Maybe to Martignac?
Yeah, well, you know our relationship with the European Union, how it's working at this moment. Probably it's not so an easy question, but of course, I mean, Switzerland, we are depending a lot as a small country on I say again, on a sustainable development of the world. And I think Switzerland is as a country is very committed to this kind of to the Paris agenda, to the global agendas, also to the green, let's say the green internal Swiss agenda, and we are committed to a zero carbon strategy until 2050. We are struggling to get there. As you know, the carbon law did not pass last year. Let's say that the public votes, unfortunately. So we have to see how we can accelerate this. Let's say the setting of the law, etc., and then how we can implement in our country, trying to become more sustainable, use more. Let's say cleaner energies at one side, but also support other countries to accelerate, to become more, quicker in a, let's say, a greener mode of doing business. It's a very, very difficult question, and a very difficult path to go there. But I think, at least from the development agency, we are really committed to go this path, and with our limited resources, we are tackling towards this objective.
I'm quite sure. Only if it's very, very short. But we need a mic anyway for please. But I really ask you to be super short.
Mr. Martin, I don't know. You said Switzerland is a small country. Yes, Switzerland is very small, but all this money from destruction passes through our banks. We have lots of banks. And as long as there are so many banks with so much power in the world, we can speak of visions, but visions don't help anymore. It's too late. She's right. If we want to participate in the knowledge these people in the Amazon still have, they have more knowledge than we with all our universities. I'm sorry. I know it because they know what is important in life and what you have to protect. So this Green Deal speaking is just a curtain of smoke and nothing else. It's now we have to do what we have to do, not in 2030 and not CO2 numbers. It doesn't help anymore. It's too late.
Thank you. What a wonderful non-question you had. Thank you very much for it. I would transfer that into a one-sentence answer from the three of you, because the finale of that non-question was about the immediacy and importance to act now and to be now. So if you can tell me as a sort of last point of this discussion, what do you think should be done really now? One thing.
Please don't buy gold from Amazon. Don't buy old and soybean that destroy life in the Amazon. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
One, short.
Very, very short.
Now, not in the future, now.
No, I think the question of financing is certainly something we saw it also lastly with the Panama Papers and the Pandora Papers, etc. is certainly something as Switzerland we have to look into, and yeah, that's the point I would like to put here. It's not something we are as a development agency are working on. But I'm aware that this is an important question.
Besides banks, Switzerland is intermediating half of soft commodities, 2/3 of metals, base metals. So I think the responsible business initiative that didn't pass, that was a big missed chance.
Thank you. I will allow myself to say one thing, and only because we didn't talk so much about arts and culture, and that was the topic of the discussion today. But there's a notion developed by a Peruvian indigenous curator from the Amazon, the notion of artivism, which means that all the art that comes from the Amazon in different forms and shapes and visual and performative and music is always a form of activism, saying that this is the knowledge, this is what we are today, please see it. So if we can learn and pay attention and try to know more about the art from Amazon, we will also be a little bit part of the activism to save and protect it. Thank you very much, the audience online and offline. Thank you very much, Vandria Borari, Federico Camelli, and Martin Yagi. Aperol is waiting for you outside, and if there is no closing remarks on your side, then the very last thing I want to say is just there are two more panel discussions that are coming in this series. One in Zurich on November 11 on water, and one in Bern in November 30th on trade, production, and consumption. They're all also offline and online, and if you would like to follow, please follow them. Thank you so much, and see you at Aperol.